Now on Mississippi Insight.
We have to do things as Democrats to at least better our chances by reducing this supermajority.
State lawmaker, Mississippi Democratic Chairman Cheikh Taylor outlines the challenges facing his party as Republicans take power once again in Jackson and Washington. And we have consumer alerts for the holidays. The Better Business Bureau's John O'Hara is keeping an eye out for yet more scams this season. That's all ahead this week on Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown on broadcast and podcast. Welcome to this December 14th edition of Insight. It's not a news flash to Mississippi Democrats that they have struggled politically this year and for many years before. Republicans are fully in control in the state legislature, the governor's office, not to mention their power trifecta in the nation's capital. But State Representative Cheikh Taylor says he has a strategy for putting the party back on its feet. Show producer Tom Wright spoke with the chairman of the Mississippi Democratic Party about the road ahead and the lessons learned last November.
Listen, I mean, to be quite frank, there's still a lot of unpacking to do. I think that anyone who rushes to have a silver bullet to how we turn the corner is probably a bit misguided because there are a lot of factors. But one thing I'll say very firmly is that we have to applaud Kamala Harris for taking up the mantle for this presidential election 90 days before. Donald Trump had the luxury of 4 years to campaign. That means 4 years of fundraising, 4 years of tuning this well-oiled machine, 4 years of rhetoric, 4 years of defining what the Democratic Party is and or the Harris campaign. But what we do know is that there was no lack of money that came in to support Harris and her bid. We know that the energy was 2008-ish as far as with Obama. We know that Democrats have a message and a plan for the rest of the country that will help the average American. But here we are on the heels of election. Everyone is a little sore. Everyone is a little beat up about it, of course. People take these elections very seriously and to heart. But at the end of the day, we know that she's a fighter. We know that we are on the right side of history with the messaging that we have, and that we're going to take these next 3.5, 4 years to build and rebuild the party here in the state of Mississippi. We have a branding issue. And to be very matter of fact, we have to make sure we're going after the greatest rate of return when it comes to investing time and resources into voters. Listen, being self-reflective about how we handle things at the State Democratic Party, we have to be appealing to the masses and not just minorities. What do I mean by that? In some of our issues, we were very focused on messaging to 0.08% of the population. Oftentimes, 10% of the population. We have to rebrand and change the narrative to make sure that our values are reflecting those of Mississippians. We're not the national DNC. We're not New York. We're not California. We're very specific, and Mississippi is a unique place. And one thing that I have learned in this process in about a year and a half being chairman of the Democratic Party is that you have to speak directly to the people and what they need. And we have to talk about taxes. We have to talk about infrastructure, and we have to talk about economic development. And those are the things that drive people's vote and also allegiance to any party. You have more independent voters than ever. And they have the wherewithal with all the 24-hour news cycle, all the images and messaging that's out there to start making their own decisions. And we have to make sure we're meeting them where they are in a grassroots level that maybe even take off the brand, the Democratic Party, and to show ourselves as friends in our own communities.
What does it look like on the ground in terms of strategies for expanding your base, your voter base, especially in those areas outside the urban centers and outside the Delta that have traditionally been dominated by Mississippi Republicans? What does that look like?
It looks like having very small group conversations. It looks like appealing to young folks and listening instead of preaching. And it also looks at our aging communities and our seniors and really listening. We cannot be the party of elitists. We cannot be the party that just has a philosophical plan. We have to meet folks where they are, and meaning in our own communities. This may be the barbecue. This may be talking about healthcare and the importance of it. This is party building without the name of the party anymore. And so, in order to appeal to folks who are independent thinkers, you have to make sure they understand that your intentions are well and that you're just not pandering for votes. And that's who we will be, and that's who we are moving forward. Our 82 county grassroots organizing strategy will change our state from deep red to purple to blue in the next 4 years.
I want to get into the legislature now.
Okay.
I mean, what are you in particular prioritizing, you and your party, in terms of your agendas for the 2025 legislature?
Yeah.
What do you look at?
Listen, we've already started. My colleagues who represent Northeast Mississippi, Hinds County, the Delta, and so on and so forth, we've already presented a robust agenda of about 6 points to the leader of the Democratic caucus so that we can actually start developing those thought processes and organizing in a way that we have block votes, which we have not been as successful as I would like us to be. So listen, there was still a lot of meat left on the bone from last session. We didn't achieve Medicaid expansion. We didn't achieve a clean ballot initiative. And also felony voting is also a big issue for us. One of the biggest battle cries is how do you elect a president with 34 felonies, but yet there are Mississippians who have a felony who seem to have a lifetime ban on voting because of certain crimes, but more importantly, be marginalized because of something that happened probably within their teens. So we have to make sure that we're giving every Mississippian an opportunity to vote, to redeem themselves, and do it in a process that's not so convoluted that we lose them along the way. It needs to be automatic restoration of voting rights once you have completed your fines, your fees, and your debt to society and become a full citizen again. Medicaid expansion will, of course, be another big issue that we continue to fight, champion, but we got to remove the work requirement. Listen, my mother is 76 years old. Are you going to tell my mother to go back to work? Are you going to tell your mother to go back to work? So, these are questions that, seem to have good intention. These are buzzwords. These are dog whistles when it talks about work requirements, because it seems to say that Medicaid expansion is an entitlement program, when we know that this is actually the remedy for workforce advancement for the state of Mississippi.
You mentioned taxes. That's clearly going to be a huge issue in this.
No doubt about it.
The governor insists on income tax elimination.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of discussion about grocery taxes that impact all Mississippians. What are your thoughts on how this debate is going to play out in this session?
They're going to push the narrative about eliminating our state income tax. And our state economists warned all of us that that was a horrible idea. But this is a national Republican agenda that's being followed here in the state of Mississippi. What I can tell you very firmly and specifically is that the average Mississippi is looking for a grocery tax cut and possibly a fuel tax cut. We'll have more benefits from that than any elimination of our state income tax. It will hit people exactly where they need it, and that will put more money in their pockets. But more importantly, it won't bankrupt the state of Mississippi. One of the strongest things that we can be doing as Democrats is actually looking at every 3/5 vote and making our voices heard. This is probably the session where we have to not only work across the aisle, but be very adamant of the things that we're not supporting. So this is where we show greater number in block votes and also take advantage of redistricting. So as you know, there are 3 mandated seats that are required to be redistricted by our Supreme Court. That number probably would be expanded to 5 before too long, but we can possibly have at least 15 runoff elections, special elections that result because of it. That's very chaotic. There's a lot of moving around, and chances are there's an opportunity to flip some seats there. And that's what I'm most interested in as chairman of the state Democratic Party. So listen, a supermajority is its own animal, and it's there to live, survive, thrive, to never give away that. So we have to do things as Democrats to at least better our chances by reducing this supermajority. That is the only way that we'll have fair and balanced policies in the state of Mississippi.
The Joint Legislative Budget Committee has delivered what leaders call a good starting point for the 2025 session. They agreed Wednesday on a revenue estimate for 2026. Magnolia Tribune reports that lawmakers will work with an estimated of almost $7.63 billion. That's about 0.4% more than the current fiscal year, which ends next June. House Speaker Jason White is this year's committee chair. He says the panel recommends a balanced conservative budget with a 2% set aside of $152 million. We're back with some holiday shopping safety tips when Mississippi Insight continues. It's the season for family, for homecomings, for celebrations and reflection on a long year past, but it's also the season for heavy consumer spending, and that brings the scammers out each and every year. We're happy to have join us John O'Hara. He's in the studio with us, and he is the Chief Executive Officer of the Better Business Bureau serving Mississippi. Welcome to Mississippi Insight.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate being on, sharing our information.
You're seeing more digital scams and some social media scams this year. Talk a little bit about that, what you're seeing.
Yes, what we're seeing a lot of people are combing their social media. They're getting these pop-up ads, buy this is a good price, this is a hard to get item, and people are clicking on links. And we've been starting to get the calls this week about, hey, I ordered this a month ago and I'm getting these delay messages and I can't get in touch with people. And unfortunately what it is they've bought from companies that don't really exist. So we're seeing a lot of that going on.
And it's not just the social media ads, but also gift exchanges that can be risky. Talk about how that is if you're trying to exchange a gift.
Yes, what we're seeing is people are getting a lot of, I didn't know, they ordered a black shirt and they got a blue pair of pants, and then they're trying to get in touch with a customer, a company to get it returned back, and they're just having a hard time getting anybody on the phone these days, and they leave messages and they're not hearing back, or they've been told it's delayed. So consumers really need to, it may be a good deal, but you really need to look at who you're doing business with. A lot of these are overseas companies that you're just going to get what they send you, or you might not get anything at all.
And some of these scammers are impersonating legitimate companies. How do you identify whether it's a true company or whether some imposter?
Right. Some of the things that you see on these fake websites that they'll direct you to, they don't have contact information. They don't have a city. They don't have a state. And in the bar of the search engine, you'll see just a little bit different. They may use Amazon and then add a couple of letters to the back of it, and you think you're buying from Amazon, and you're really buying from a spoofed website that's impersonating.
So how do you, if you're just clicking away, you're looking for a certain item, and you say, well, I'm not finding it here, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm shopping around, I find a good deal. How do I really know that I'm getting that good deal and that I'm buying from a legit place?
Right. Well, first of all, if you see something that's a hard to get item and it's a really good deal, that should raise up your spidey senses, so to speak. What you should do is actually look the company up. You should go to the Better Business Bureau website, even if you do a Google search, and read what consumers are putting, because consumers will go out there. If they've bought something and didn't get it, people got on Google, they'll go to our site, they'll put a lot of comments out there about, hey, I didn't get my items, this isn't a real company. So also look at the fact that when was the company website designed? If you see that it's just popped up in the last 30, 60 days, it may raise, a little bit of attention of they're not really legit. It has no contact information. It doesn't have a phone number that you can call. you really do need to verify that they are a legitimate company and check.
How big of a problem are we having with people going to these off-the-wall websites and trying to buy items?
We get it a lot. We get it. I mean, this is something that, especially this time of year, it happens throughout the course of this time of year. People are just, trying to get some, especially now, last-minute shopping in. You're seeing an increase. Millions of dollars are being lost a year on this. One of the other scams that's kind of in the same vein is this time of year people try to buy puppies, and the puppy scam is really a fake website. They post pictures. They tell you, here, you bought this, they're going to ship the dog to you. Now you need to talk to the transportation company. So the transportation company contacts, say, we got your pet, we're trying to send them to you, pick up at the airport. But it's really the same company with a different phone number. And next thing you know, at the last minute, you're not getting that dog, you're not getting that puppy. You've disappointed that person who was looking for it, on Christmas morning, and you're out the money as well. So you really need to watch these breeders, and people just make these websites up, and that kind of falls into the social media. People are looking at cute pets on the internet.
And why have those scams worked so well against people, the puppy scam?
It's the emotional attachment. Some child sees or an adult sees a pet, picture, and they go, oh, I have to have it. Then all of a sudden it's a little bit different. It's a different breed. So there's more of an emotional thing to say a shirt, because it's a live animal.
And if consumers do have a complaint about what they're doing, how do they file a complaint, and what do they do?
Yeah, they can go to bbb.org, or they can call us at 601-398-1700. We ask that before you jump into that purchase, you actually, look on our site first. And maybe that will cut down on the complaints that you have.
Another issue besides purchasing stuff is also making donations. How do you know if you're going to make a donation to a legitimate charity or something this time of the year? And
that's something that when you're going to donate, the one thing we ask people to look out for is you really need to look out for these GoFundMes that are out there. We had a lot of storms this year. We have a lot of people still recovering in Florida and the Carolinas. And Mississippians are some of the most generous people. We're in the top 5 in giving per capita, which we should be proud of. But we want to make sure that people are actually that need the money are actually getting it. So you really need to look up if it's a person that's one thing. But these GoFundMes, they just post, tear-jerking pictures, but they've stolen it from somebody else. And people are just donating money. So you really need to, go to those tried and true. If you see a charity and not sure of the name, I had one the other day that contacted me. It was a breast cancer something. When I looked it up, it wasn't even a charity. It was an actual, lobbying firm for breast cancer, and I was just giving money for people to lobby, and it was doing nothing for breast cancer itself. It was a lobbying firm, so they weren't really a legitimate charity. So you go to Charity Navigator, or you go to give.org, which is the Better Business Bureau arm.
Yeah, what other tools does the Better Business Bureau have for people to defend themselves against some scams or other things like the charities?
We have all these tips out there for holiday. We have the 12 biggest scams going on. But on the charity side, you really want to look up the charity. And there are legitimate charities, but you want to look them up because you want to make sure that the money is actually going. There are some legitimate run charities that only have 10% actually go to the cause. It's all for overhead and marketing. Charity Navigator and give.org. If you put those charities in there, you'll see to be an accredited charity, the Better Business Bureau, over 70% has to go to the cause. Not for salaries and marketing and trips for board members. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure you give to a good one. Okay, and
and not to get scammed, if you're purchasing, is there something you can go to make sure that you're buying from a legit business?
Yeah, same thing. You want to look up at bbb.org. We have a lot of online businesses. We have a lot of accredited online businesses, which means that we have vetted them for you. But you want to see what we have to say about them, and if not, you want to call so that the local BBB, whether it's anywhere in the United States, will actually open up an investigation to make sure they are legit.
All right, John O'Hare, always good information. A little over a week before, a week and a half or so before Christmas,
yeah,
right?
people are still just gearing up, to shop. So be careful, have fun, but be careful.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll be right back.
You can find Mississippi Insight each weekend. We podcast the program each Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. Search for 12 News on Demand or Mississippi Insight for the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. Only on 12 News.
If you have comments or questions about today's show or suggestion for an interview or segment, just drop us a line. Email our producers. The address is news@WJTV.com. Big thanks to John O'Hare and Cheikh Taylor for joining us this week. Check out our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more for full interview segments. We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.